All right, what up, what up, what up? Welcome to Bleav in Rams, presented by FanDuel. What a special day. It's been a very busy 48 hours over at Rams HQ. We'll get into that in a moment in case you haven't heard. But FanDuel, check it out, Sportsbook. Knicks at Spurs tonight, NBA Finals, Game 1. Get over there. Also, in case you are wondering, the Rams continue to just stay at the top spot after what happened for almost 48 hours ago with Myles Garrett now officially becoming a Ram. We had his press conference yesterday. Rob Havenstein, my co-host, Rams Super Bowl champion, 11 years with the team, and his special friend, offensive line coach. Apparently he goes by Wendy, but I'll call him Ryan Wendell. He's been with the team for 4 years. Offensive line, I can't even imagine, first and foremost, how you're feeling right now, Ryan, but welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good. Excited to be here. Yeah, nice to meet you, Erin.
Is it Wendy or is it what we call you? Rob, please clarify.
It's Wendy.
It's Wendy. It's been windy since my first day in college, and it's stayed that way all the way through playing, and since I was a coach, and so it's always been that way. You know, when I first met my wife, she was a cheerleader at Fresno State. She met me as Wendy, and she had to tell all of her friends later when we started dating, like, "Oh, I'm dating Wendy now," and they thought things had changed in her life, and they're like, "No, I am Wendell." Like, remember, like, and they're like, "Oh, okay, I got it."
Okay. Well, then I'll call you Wendy. So when Wendy found out 48 hours ago that a Myles Garrett will now be going up against his offensive line unit at practice, how was that reaction for you?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, number one, the first thing was I was excited that I didn't have to play offensive tackle in practice, so that was cool. I felt really excited for our tackles that, you know, no matter what happens with the Cleveland Browns, if they go on a playoff run or something like that, that our guys weren't going to have to block Myles Garrett. So I felt good about that. And then I was excited about the opportunity to see him in practice work because I know how much better it's going to make our guys to get to block, you know, a reigning defensive, you know, player of the year, a guy that's that kind of a premier pass rusher and player every day. It's only going to make our guys better. So I was excited about that. And then I was just for our overall team, I was just beyond elated to think about like how much better that's going to make every guy that he's playing with on, you know, all the way from the back end. It's going to help the guys cover better. It's going to help the other guys rush better. I mean, he's a great addition to our team.
So, Wendy, I got one thing real quick. Obviously, this was kept under wraps for a long time. Apparently, this has been going down since the draft. As the head offensive line coach of the LA Rams, were you privy to the information, or was this a surprise to you too?
Oh no! Like, I mean, offensive line coaches, you know how it is, Rob. Like offensive line coaches, like, you know, the cool clinic forever has used a mushroom to talk about offensive line coaches because they keep us in the dark and they feed us, you know, whatever they want to feed us. And so for us, no, I have my head down, and there's people that get paid a lot more money than I do to think about, you know, trying to get a guy that has a no trade clause in his contract here. So, yeah, so Les and Sean and those guys, they get to do that, and you know, I'm worried about, you know, just trying to put together a practice schedule.
Sure.
Yeah, great question, because we were kind of all on our side, at least the media, myself. I was like, I'm amazed that this duo of Sean McVay and Les Snead keep just finding ways to think outside the box. Does it surprise you when things like this happen? I mean, this just feels crazy, but it is what it is. You guys now have Myles Garrett and one unbelievable defensive front. I mean, does it surprise you that Les Snead can make these moves?
No, you know, this league, like Rob knows it as well as anybody, you know, playing for 11 years in this league and seeing everything that he's seen. It's like there's no surprises in this business, really. Like there's things that are maybe unexpected, but if you really sit back and think, like I remember back when I was a player, you know, and I was at New England and we had Richard Seymour and Vince Wilfork and this like stacked defense, and then going to training camp and we traded Richard Seymour, and it was like he was like arguably our best player on defense, one of the best players in the league, and he got traded. And it was like, that's just the NFL. Like, you know, you can sign a contract and everything like that, but every team every year is trying to do everything that they can to try to win. And so sometimes you got to trade something great to get something great. And so I expect that Les and Sean and those guys are trying to turn over every stone they can to try to make us better. Um, like if you had asked me to like give you a top 10 list of things that I thought was going to happen this offseason, that probably might not have been it. But just I rarely get surprised anymore. It's just and Rob will tell you too how much it's just when something like that happens, you can be like, oh, that's a shock. And then the next day, everybody just goes to work and it just is what it is. And you turn the page and it just that's what happens. Guys get hurt every day and things change and guys come and add to the team every day and guys leave the team every day. And you look back 11 years later and you're still in one spot or you've bounced around to 11 different teams.
Yeah, no, that's exactly true. There are a ton of be like, oh, that's interesting. And then the next day you still got to go about your work. So that's well said, Wendy.
Yeah.
But talking about that guy that got brought in, Myles Garrett, how do you game plan for a guy like that? Like, I gave my opinion on as a player, as a tackle, and luckily I was on the right side more than the left, especially when we played him a couple of years back. But like, as the coach, coming up with the game plan, coming up with the protection plan, what kind of challenges does a Myles Garrett type player like bring on to somebody as early as Monday, going all the way through Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as first of all, when you have a player like that coming up on the schedule, you know about it ahead of time, so you're already looking ahead to that. But we look at the structure of a defense, the way a defense is put together, the way that they like to play, how they like to play, how they like to attack offenses, and how we want to attack them. But before I want to know anything else, when I look at our personnel guys or the guys who work ahead for me, which are like the assistant offensive line coach Jack Cromer or Brian Allen, who's working for us as well. Like I want to know the first thing about a defense. I want to know like, is there a game wrecker on the field for this team? And if they are, where do they line up? And can we make sure we know where they're at all times? So if you're playing a team that has a guy like Myles Garrett, or in the past, like a guy like maybe like Aaron Donald, or back when I was playing like a guy like JJ Watt and things like that, like you have to know where those guys are. Or, Rob, you played with Vaughn, like you have to know where those guys are because those guys can fundamentally change the game. And every play, you have to know where those guys are on the field and you are directing protection towards them. You are running plays that go away from them or running plays that go towards them if you think that's the better answer. So it depends on the player and it depends on where he lines up. Like if he's always in one spot, then expect a lot of runs going the other way, a lot of slides going to him in protection. If he lines up in multiple spots, expect a lot of checks and a lot of movement and a lot of changing things to try to get them where you want them and things like that. And if there are guys like how Vaughn used to be, where he'd be all over the place, then it's like, all right, guys, buckle up. Like everybody's going to have to hold up on this. And I joke about it a lot sometimes with the other offensive linemen or with the other coaches. And sometimes the best plan against a guy, like, hey, if you can't block him, don't block him. Don't even waste a blocker on a guy that's that good sometimes.
Sure.
Let that guy go free and do something else. If that's throwing a screen or handing off a sweep. But every one of those guys that are game wreckers, like they all have something about them that you're just like, all right, we can't let that happen. And so you try to take that part out of the game. And then after that, you got to hope that the other 10 guys can come through for you.
Sure.
I love that Wendy's answer is like, you just don't even worry about it. Like at this point, there's nothing you could do about it. It was so funny too. I actually woke up wondering how on a scale, I thought of a couple people, but I thought of how Mike LaFleur must be feeling right about now, going to Arizona and having to manage that situation. Obviously, you worked very closely with him. He was your offensive coordinator. But then I also thought about maybe how is Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch feeling? Because now in that division, they have to go face a team that is essentially stacked in Melbourne. And it's just going to make that season kickoff and this division, which in my opinion is the toughest division in the NFL, 3 teams going to the postseason. It just made me, think of your opposition and how quarterbacks in the NFC, but certainly quarterbacks in the NFC West must be feeling knowing they now have to deal with Myles Garrett.
Yeah, I think that the teams in our division, that we have a lot of respect for. You talked about, Coach Shanahan up at the Niners and things like that. Like, I would assume that they try to do things similar to what we do, which is like, hey, let's just focus on this week. Let's focus on phase 3 of OTAs. Let's do this. Like, you're not playing against those teams right now. Like we don't even know what our team is yet. We're still trying to figure it out. Thought Dan Campbell said it good the other day. Like, I mean, we're not trying to make evaluations on what we have and what we have on the field just based on pajamas. Like, our guys can't even do their jobs until they put pads on. So I'll have a lot better idea about what that'll look like, come training camp and come that first game of the season, when we're down in Australia. But we got a long way to go until then. Um, I hope some of those teams that we play, especially early on, don't have that kind of focus and they start thinking about, a guy like Myles Garrett, like that. I hope they are worried about that instead of worried about just, taking each day and just trying to get better each day.
So I probably know where the answer is going to go, Wendy, but I got to ask, is there maybe someone else that's been in the news a little bit where teams can start worrying about him too? He used to wear 99. Obviously that's kind of been the big talk. Just being around the building, how much is being talked about? Like, oh, is Erin serious? Do you think he would want to come back? What's kind of the vibe going on in there right now about a potential Aaron Donald return?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, for me, like I said, like everything that happened with Miles as well, like that stuff is way above my pay grade, and
Sure.
so I'll bet the players in the locker room have a lot better feel on that than me. You'd have to ask those guys, like,
Yeah.
call your buddies in there about what AD does. So he's a man. It was a fun to be able to be on a team and coach against him every day in practice and see him work. And I mean, the kind of guy that he is, and so I'm sure
Mhm.
he's still in great shape and still ready to go. I give him a hard time. We were playing, Seattle last year. I think it was before the Thursday night game. It was before one of the games, and AD was there, and I saw him in pregame. Him and Tom were talking to each other. Him and Brady were talking to each other, and I went over to AD afterwards, and I was just like, "What do you two guys talk about?" Just like,
Mm.
"Oh, like, hey, like, how does it feel to be excellent every morning when you
Right.
wake up?" "Oh, it's pretty awesome, man." Like, and like, I was like, "You guys just two of the greatest." Watching these guys like go out and talk about, it. I was just like wondering, like, what are these guys talking about?
Mhm.
Just
Yeah.
greatness.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like, what's their group chat like? Do they have a group
exactly.
chat? Do they use emojis? Like, there's so many things about who they are outside of, like you said, greatness that to me, I think our strategy, guys, is like we got to figure out how to send something to Erica Donald and get her on board because she tweeted yesterday, y'all are hilarious. And, I read the comments and every fan was like, please, because we really know at the end of the day, it's the ladies that are deciding whether or not, hey, you got to pick the kids up from school, and Donald did it from such a high motor for so long, and you can't deny that. Coach McVay was asked yesterday, and that he just has, even at 35, the ability to play from such a high clip per what he mentioned, and the Rams would be more than happy to have him back. But it just depends on, and Donald said this last year. He was asked the same question. He said, "I'm busier now than
Yeah.
I was even when I played," and so really the sacrifice that you guys all put into that excellence, and doing it consistently, it is a sacrifice, and we as fans, we appreciate what you guys end up doing. And speaking of sacrifice, I think too, Wendy, I would love to rattle off some of your stats, because last season you guided a unit tied with the Broncos. Is it the fifth fewest sacks allowed? Is that right? You guys really dominated. Do you not even care about the stats? Like, that's not even important to you?
I honestly wouldn't know. Well, a couple things, like the as far as stats go, like I really wouldn't know about that. The only one that really matters is that, like, how many games we win, and so it's like it's really the only stat that matters, and the only stat that really matters is that we didn't win the last one, and so that was the only one that really mattered. So of course, like every game, like we go into it, as a unit, especially with the offensive line, like the guys have a certain set of priorities. Rob knows it. Like the goal number one is to protect Matthew, whoever's playing quarterback. But in our team, it's Matthew. So protect Matthew, protect each other, and try like hell to make sure that the ball carrier is never by himself. And and as Rob would say before every game, and like, hey, if you ever got to make a choice, the answer is always violence is always a good way to go. So that was always Rob with that. And then as far as like, I coached, the offensive line with Sean and with Mike and with all the other guys, like with Zach, the guys that are here, all the coaches together. But as far as leading these guys, like that was really Rob. Like Rob led that unit, and he had a good cast of characters in there with them, with Coleman and Alaric and Steve and K Dot and all these guys and Warren stepping up. So it was like I was just really excited to be a part of it, But yeah, as far as stats go, we just need another win. The worst part about all that stuff is just the worst part about losing a game in the playoffs is just that you don't get another week with the guys. So the worst part about the way last season ended was that we didn't get to have another week or two with each other, and then it was a last week that I got to spend with Rob in the building. Although he still pokes his head in every now and then for some rehab.
That's right. Yeah, my time in the building looks a little different now, and
yeah.
I'm trying to do the same thing you have. And Wendy, do you want to let everybody know your transformation that's been going on? How much weight have you actually lost?
Shoot, I got to weigh in again. I'm down at least 95 pounds. I'm trying to hit 3 digits. I'm trying to go from 315 to 215. So, the transition from player to retired was on the body was pretty good. Like I lost weight really quick. Rob's losing weight. You can see he's getting his chin is starting to stick out. He's getting all chiseled up, right? I saw him the other week. He's making our linemen all look bigger now because he's lost so much weight, looking good, looking younger. And then you start coaching, and coaching is bad on the body. Like it is a different deal. I mean, I'm sitting down too much, working too long hours, eating too much, but and so then the weight starts coming up. So I had to get a little bit of help with some of these weight loss drugs, but I had to try to stay healthy, try to live forever, try to be around for my daughters as long as I can.
That's right.
I mean, McVay is pretty jacked. I will say that as a coach and how committed he is. That guy's like he's seriously in like crazy good shape.
Hey, Sean gets enough like attaboys, all right. Like, so let's he doesn't need any more of that, right? We don't have to let's just if there's some things we can hold back from telling him like that, like let's try to check him a little bit, Like if Rob walked behind Sean and just like grabbed a little back fat or something like that, we'd have him self-conscious a little bit. We got to keep that level too.
Keep him on his toes. I mean, yeah, it was, not having a guy like Rob who I've heard from behind the scenes is quite the jokester and has a very good sense of humor. What's it like, I mean, you must miss Rob in the building consistently. I guess that's the hardest part when both guys, have to say bye or retire, right?
Yeah, it's one of the coolest things about this sport, right, is that you get so many different guys from so many different walks of life that all come together. And it's the coolest thing about football is that you get thrown into these situations so quickly that you get to become friends and brothers and family with these guys so quickly because you get thrown into situations where, like, if these guys don't do their job properly, like people get hurt, and so like the offensive line, so you have to earn people's trust fast. And to watch a group go from every year, there's new guys in the room. So every year the room takes on a little bit different flavor. The team is a little bit different every year. And so it's one of the coolest things to see every year. And Rob was a part of 11 of those teams to see that, to build it every year. And sometimes guys stay and sometimes guys leave. And so that changes. So it's, you don't replace a guy like Rob Havenstein. The room just changes when he's not there. And it's interesting to see the dynamics change as new guys come in and guys leave. And it's cool to watch these guys learn to trust each other because you'll see you get a young guy in from college and he comes in and he doesn't know if he can trust them. And the older guys that are the guys that you want in the room, they throw out that trust first. And the young guys learn to come along and you get to see real leadership come out. And it's really cool to watch it grow. And it's starting right now. And the faster you can do it and the faster you can come together, the better chance you give yourself a chance to win.
And speaking of the room now, obviously I'm no longer there, miss being there, but throughout the spring, has there been someone or a couple guys who have kind of, I guess, stepped up into that role, spoken out a little bit more, bringing guys together? Is there anyone you want to give little flowers to?
Well, we made DQ. We made David Questenberry. He got mandated. He had to take your chair. So
Perfect.
like Rob wasn't there, and it's a new room, and somebody should sit in that seat, but nobody really like everybody has a chair, and nobody wanted to sit there, and they wanted to make sure that some disrespectful rookie didn't come and just sit in that chair, and so they forced DQ to take that seat, and they made him be in charge of the board. So you got to get with him because he's in charge of keeping the score, and it's all over the place. Rob, he doesn't have a handle on it yet, but
Okay. It comes with time.
yeah, so it takes time. Rob kept our board, so we have a board where we keep track of a score, and it's a very elaborate system.
Mhm.
And so DQ now is in charge of that, and DQ is also he's the oldest guy in the room, so he's the guy, Rob, that we huddle up on at
Mm.
the end of practice and everything like that. So people have to look for him, and he's a tall guy, but he's not as tall as you. You were always easy to find when we had to huddle up at the end of practice, but now they got to find DQ. But I would say I think DQ is doing a great job. Coleman, of course. Like Coleman's going to lead that room and do an awesome job. Alaric, always brings such an amount of toughness and work ethic. Like those young guys just see the kind of work that he brings. And then K. Dot, Warren, and Steve. Those guys are just like I think they bring a kind of like professionalism, but at the same time like levity to the room. Like how funny those guys are, and they keep it light. So I think there's a good balance of the guys in there. Like trying to form like what we want as a culture in that room.
I always felt like the offensive line guys were not just the smartest, but they always were the funniest. You guys sort of have you speak your own language in a lot of ways, and of course, obviously, you literally have to be in step and in sync to keep your quarterback upright. I know you don't like stats, Wendy, but I have to give reverence where it is deserved because your offensive line unit had unbelievable production in what you were able to do in terms of the offense, right? You guys ranked first in the league in total offense. You put up 30 and a half points and 394.6 total yards per game. You guys deserve the recognition because you'd been through so much. When you look at this season and all the crazy things going on and different, Ty Simpson now is there. How do you build for yourself as the offensive line coach? Like, how do you build on what you guys achieved last season?
You start all over again, and so that's the thing. All those stats you just said, that was for last year's team. The 2025 team did some cool things, and so this team hasn't done anything yet, and it'll be exciting to see what we can put out on the field. But Rob will tell you as much as anything else, like, hey, the offensive line, like they are the smartest guys, so don't worry about that. But like the reason the reason why offensive linemen are funny is because they were all little fat kids like a long time ago, so they had to develop personalities. We all had to. You couldn't just be a great athlete. Those guys were all like chubby in middle school, so they had to learn how to be funny or do something like that, or learn how to juggle. They had to bring something to the table
Mhm.
besides just being an athlete. So the guys do have a great personality, but like the guys that really excel on the offensive line, the guys that like look once you're big enough and smart enough and athletic enough, but if you play offensive line at a high level, the greatest compliment that I can give to an offensive lineman, and Rob knows this because I've given it to him, is that you'd be willing to throw yourself in front of a bus to make sure that Matthew Stafford
Mm.
didn't get hurt. And so if you put a room of guys like that, you get 15 guys in a room that all feel like that are willing to put their priorities behind like that of the team, and especially that of the quarterback and the running game. Like those are great guys. Those are the
Mhm.
guys you want. And that's part of
Mm.
playing that position. Not every position has to be like that, but ours does. And so, that's a huge thing, for that room is those kind of guys. So it's easy, to get along with guys that are willing to do that. It's easy to work with guys that are willing to do that. So you find enough guys that'll do that and you give yourself a chance.
Yeah, that that's been the funnest part of the offensive line room for me is because you get guys in from all different walks of life. Like Alec Jackson is so different than a Kevin Dotson, than a Coleman Shelton. Like personality wise, how they go about their business, maybe in a similar way, but like their personalities are different. They're from all over the country, and there's like one or two traits that will make you excel as an offensive lineman. As long as they have that, we're going to be best friends forever. And you
Yeah.
can do it. You can do it being yourself. You know, you don't have to change to be anybody else. You can be true to who you are, but you all share these common personality traits. Just everything else can be completely different. And that's kind of the funnest thing about the offensive line room. I mean, in my opinion.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a fun room. I loved being in it as a player, and I love being in it as a coach. Like
Mm,
I don't know what all the other rooms are like, but man,
Yep.
offensive linemen, they're fun to be around, and they'll, and the right guys, Rob, like the guys that are not that kind of guy, they stick out like a sore thumb, and they just don't last. So it's rare that guys get to the NFL, get to this level without having already been weeded out. Like
mhm,
they go do something else before they get to here, because it just requires you to sacrifice a lot, and that's why
mhm,
I got two daughters, and if they end up marrying a football player, I hope it's an offensive lineman, because I think
mm.
they make pretty good husbands too.
I agree
Well,
there.
Rob talks about how much he loves his kids and his wife, and if he doesn't make it to school functions on time, he's in big trouble. So,
Mhm.
we know how his commitment is to his family. And I think that you said something really interesting, Robin. We're going to be wrapping soon because we know you're in the middle of things going on, and we really appreciate your time with us, Wendy. But when you said one or two traits, Rob, that offensive lineman and certainly the Rams offensive lineman must have. For you, Wendy, what would be like the number one most important trait?
Yeah, I mean, there is, like I said, there are a few, physical requirements. Like not just anybody can play offensive line. So like you start with a baseline of, you got to be big enough, you got to be smart enough, right? You got to be athletic enough, right? You got to be. But once you get that, so there is that. Like I would love to say anybody can do it, but a 5'5" guy, just it's not going to happen in this league. But once you get to a minimum baseline of physical attributes, right? Then to play this position, you have to be tough. You have to be physically tough, which means like you have to look for contact on every play, and you've got to be able to withstand contact on every play. Like so, offensive linemen, like they have to have a level of toughness that other positions don't necessarily have to have, right? So they have to have that physical toughness, and then they also have to have a level of mental toughness, right? That
Mm,
allows them to do what's right for the team when everything's not going right for them. Because
mhm,
outside of that first day of OTAs, Rob, or maybe after a month off, that first day of training camp, like these guys that are the size that Rob Havenstein is, that are the size that Kevin Dotson is, like their body is going through a car crash multiple times a day in practice, and they are hurt and they are hurting, and they have to every day get up, roll themselves out of bed, and we try to provide them everything we can. But like the mental toughness to grind through the wear and tear of being a football player in the NFL, and do it day after day and grind after grind. And if you do everything right, and if you do everything perfect, your only reward is that you get to do more work.
Mhm.
So like the reward for good work is just more work.
mhm,
That's what separates offensive linemen from like other positions. Like I love our defensive linemen, but if they do their job great, they get to leave the field and go sit on the bench, right? If Rob has a great block, they get a first down, and we get to do it again. And
Mhm.
that's like, so
mm,
our guys are just like chomping at the bit to do it again and do it again. And it's tough, and it wears on you mentally. And so you have to be physically tough, but you got to be mentally tough. And like I
mm,
said, that overarching theme of just, you have to be a servant,
mm.
at your core. Like you have to be willing to say, I'm going to put the team first, because that's the most important thing. And like those are the qualities that are most important for offensive linemen.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And Wendy, I know we got to get you out of here pretty soon, but something funny just from I want to say it was last year. We had a young guy in line to start a game, and so we're sitting there pregame, and you can tell he's rocking a little bit in his chair, and head's going. He's maybe listening to himself more than he's talking to himself, and it was me and Coleman Shelton, so we kind of look over, like, dude, you all right? Because yeah, dude, just man, just the anxiety and just like just the feel the anticipation of the game, and we both kind of looked at him and kind of in the same breath we're like, listen, that's never going to go away. Like
Yeah.
that anticipation pregame, honestly, it's going to get worse as you get older, as you maybe like you don't have quite the pop in the old hips anymore. Like it's going to get worse, but at some point you're going to figure it out about how to control that in your process. Like, and I think the mental side of offensive line is really a massive separator of guys. So I'm really glad you
Mhm.
said that. Erin, do you have anything else before we let Wendy go?
No, I appreciate both of you guys together, and I know Wendy, you wouldn't do this if it weren't for the respect and reverence that you have for Rob. And I am almost certain you're not surprised how good Rob is at this position in broadcasting and analysis. Because if he's that dedicated as an offensive lineman, he takes this job and the stories that he wants to tell about the Rams so well. So I'm sure you're not surprised, but we're really appreciative of your time. We know how busy you guys are over at Rams, and thank you for making some time.
No, I know. Yeah, I like to being. We talk about like the physical attributes you need. I never had the physical attributes to play offensive tackle. I barely had the physical attributes to play on the interior of the offensive line. And so, but I like to give Rob and all the other tackles a pretty hard time. That we make sure that they know that there's a hierarchy in the offensive line room. That the centers are the best, tackles are the second best, and then the guards, like they got to choose a team, like one or the other. But Rob by far is the smartest tackle that I've ever coached, that I've ever been around. And so, outside of the fact that he's a freaking giant, like he could have played center, right? He would have done a great job in there. But fortunately, he was blessed with long enough arms to be able to go out there and play on an island and tackle. So, yeah, Rob's an honorary center at heart. So we know that he verbally could, get the calls down. He could go out there. He can do this. He can be a podcaster, do media and all this stuff. But yeah, he asked if I would do the show, and it was like, I know, like he knows I can't say no. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. Like the guy put his body on the line for me for 3 years. So yeah, all right, I'll do it. But yeah, anything for Rob.
Well, we appreciate it, Wendy. I really do, man. I enjoyed the heck out of our time there. Like I said, I'm mentally sad it had to end. Physically glad it did have to end. But I know we're going to stay in touch for a long time. And man, I appreciate you coming on and doing this with us, and shedding a little light in there. And there's been a lot of talk about some of the offensive line depth, as there is every year around the draft portion. So I just want you to know I've been defending you guys, wholeheartedly, and say we got the right guys in the room. And so I'm looking forward to seeing the continued success you guys are going to have.
Shoot, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know about any of that stuff. I know Matthew Stafford makes us a better offensive line. I know that Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua make us a better offensive line. I know Kobe Parkinson and Ty Higbee and all these guys, like they make us freaking better blockers. So it's like you put those guys out there, and then that doesn't even say anything about the defensive guys. It's like those guys get us the ball back. All of a sudden, the offensive numbers look a lot better. So it's like that's the thing. It's a team. So who knows? Like individually, I don't know what any of us look like on the offensive line or what we look like as a unit. But I know that if we can put together a good team, it makes all of us better.
No doubt.
There you go. There you have it. Your Matthew Stafford and your Myles Garrett, Devontae. I mean, it's absolutely bonkers over there at Rams HQ. Ryan Wendell, offensive line, Wendy, offensive line coach over at the Rams. We're so grateful that we get Rob, and we're so grateful you were able to make time for us today. Thank you again, Wendy. We appreciate it.